In few of the previous sessions, we have been discussing about data visualization, which is a great deal when we have to understand our data and when we have to look at it visually. So we have discussed lots of plot that belongs to Matplotlib, and we have got to know their significance and how to write basic code and how to deal with the data and plot these data using this library. Today, we are going to explore few of the functions that got left in the previous session. And when we were ending the previous session, we were discussing about subplots. So we will be starting from here itself and we'll be progressing towards discussing about Seaborn today. All right. So let's start by Matplotlib. Now, yesterday we worked on a data set that was, let me just import the necessary libraries first. Alright, so yesterday we were working on this data set, which may we had name of a track, name of the artist, genre of the track, and few of values related to that track. What is the loudness, what is the length of the track, popularity, danceability, and all these things. All right. So this is the data that we were working upon, and we visualized a thing or two from this data. हमने इस पे histogram बना के देखा था. So we will be exploring it and we will be creating some subplots on this data. Now the function that we used yesterday, that was the subplot function. Using that function, we could only create subplots that were of one type. All of them were histograms. Okay. So there is another function that is called GridSpec function that you can use and you can achieve the same task that is of creating subplot, but GridSpec will allow you to create subplots of various kinds. Okay, so you can include different kinds of chart in one single figure. So let's see how we can do this. For that, I'll be showing a picture to you guys. Just give me a moment. Guys, don't seem to get the picture. No worries. So I'll be dictating a task to you guys. Abhi, in the last session, what we did, we learned about a graph that is called the stacked graph. Okay. So basically, we could use this graph and we could compare any two values from our data. To draw this graph, we were dealing with a data set that was called, I guess, cars, and it contained information about resale value and price for some manufacturers, right? तो उस पे हमने क्या किया था that we drew this stacked graph and we compared the resale value and price for different manufacturers. Okay. So what I want you to do, I want you to get this data set from the drive and everyone has to attempt it. And I want you to draw a stacked graph and you have to compare two things. So energy versus danceability per genre. Okay, so you have to achieve kind of the same thing, but with this data set. यहाँ पे you will find a column for danceability, and at the end, somewhere you will find the column for energy. Yeah, here it is. So you have to compare these two values for every genre that is present in your data set, which means you would have to group your data based upon genre and then calculate the average of energy and danceability for that particular genre. Okay, so you have to draw a stacked graph for this data, and please get on with it. Give me a thumbs up once you start attempting. The data is present on drive. हाँ जी, क्वेश्चन समझ में आया सबको? What must be achieved? I want everyone to react today, please. Only Paras has reacted. Himanshu, Abhiraj, Amit, Afan, please get this data set from the drive and please start attempting. Zyada time nahi lega. It should take only 5 minutes to do. Okay. Once you have the code which is working for you guys, drop the code in the chat box. If you can't seem to solve it, please let me know. Okay. All right. The time starts now. Sure. Give me a minute, Mansu. I'll share. This is the data, and Afan has dropped the link for the data in the chat box. Please refer it. This is the question, Himanshu. You have to draw a stacked graph that shows the difference between energy and danceability per genre. This is the genre column, this is energy, this is danceability. You have to deal with these three columns. Hanji, please provide me updates about your progress. If you are still attempting and need some more time, give me a thumbs up. Okay. If you give up, you can mention about that in the chat box. 5 more minutes to solve it. All right, we got a code from Afan. Okay, this is what Afan has visualized. if anyone else has been able to figure it out, and if you have a different graph from this one, can you please drop the code? There is some
Hello,
error in Afan's visualization.
hello. Am I audible?
Afan, are you saying something? I can't hear you.
Yes, am I audible, Mr.?
हाँ हाँ, now you are audible.
Actually, I forgot कि वो कीवर्ड क्या था जिससे like you can rotate the like bar.
Okay, okay. So that was xticks.
Oh,
That is a
okay.
function that you can use. If you want to rotate the bar graph, then you can simply convert into uh, horizontal bar graph. And here, what is the error? Let me just figure out. So we have labels. And this is also an error with your graph that you haven't mentioned this left keyword. Okay. See, now the visualization is perfect. This keyword was missing, तो उसकी वजह से हो क्या रहा था कि once this bar was created, this another bar function, it was overlapping the previous one. तो आप एक बार difference notice करो. If I remove this bottom parameter, तो bars जो है वो overlap कर रही है. And like you mentioned about the ticks, तो उसके लिए we have xticks function, जिसके लिए the parameter we use is rotation. Okay, so now the ticks are rotated. Also, you can use the bar h function. Right now, it's showing some error. You can figure about that as well. Okay, everyone else, give me a thumbs up अगर आप सब भी ऐसा ही कुछ करना चाह रहे थे. And if you are able to achieve the same. All right. So, the main reason that I asked you to draw it, one is just to see how you guys are coping up with the new functions and the Matplotlib library. And the second reason for doing this is that we are going to use the same graph in our subplot that we will be creating. So first, let's see how the subplot is going to look like. When you use the GridSpec function, what it does, it is going to take a figure. Okay, so this whole image from here, this is representing one figure, and you initialize or you draw a figure container using the figure function. What the GridSpec function does, it is going to divide each part of your figure in grids, and you can define from your own side how much space you want each graph to take. Okay, just like you slice arrays, you can slice this grid and you can put or place a graph of your choice in that particular section of the grid. Okay, so let's use the grid spec function and let's create some subplots. तो उसके लिए what we will be doing, we will be creating one another graph. तो इसी डेटा के लिए let's create two simple histograms, and we can create for popularity column. Okay, so this is popularity. और एक और graph बना लेते हैं. Let's create histogram only. Okay, we have loudness, I think. Okay, now you can draw any graph of your choice, but since histograms are easy to draw, I have used them. और इन्हीं graphs को we will be including in our grid plot. To start making a grid plot, you have to make a figure and then you have to construct a grid. So start by using the function that is plt.gridspec, and you have to define the dimension of your grid. So any dimension, any shape you can use here, not the dimension, sorry, the shape. I have used 4 cross 5, which means that I can slice it into something that has 4 columns and 5 rows. Okay. Not necessarily we will be speaking about rows and columns, but अगर आप array के perspective से समझोगे तो it will be easier for you to understand. Okay. So just like a 2D array of 4 cross 5 shape, consider that you have a grid of this shape only, and you are going to slice it into some sections and draw a graph there. So this is my grid, and I have declared a variable for it. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to construct a figure. उसके लिए we will be using the figure container, creating the figure container using the figure function, or fig size में we will be defining the size. Now for better visualization I would recommend कि आप size थोड़ा ज़्यादा define करो इस case में. So I have defined 15th and 12th as height and width for this figure. Store it inside a variable. Okay, so the grid is created and the figure container is also created. Secondly, what you are going to do, you are going to start adding the subplot. Okay, so in this figure, that is fig, I have to add a subplot. Okay, so I have used this function that is called subplot. और जो आपकी grid है, now you have to add the subplot in using this GridSpec function. So you are going to slice this grid. Okay, slice करने के लिए use the variable name, and just like you slice a 2D array, mention the slicing criteria. So a start value and a stop value. जैसे for ease of understanding, I said कि 4 is a 4 could be number of rows and 5 could be the number of columns. So I am slicing it into something which contains the starting 2 rows and the starting 3 columns. Okay, you can consider that the part that I'm slicing contains like somewhat this section of the graph. Not necessarily I will be creating this graph, but the section that I have sliced as of now, उसमें इतना part आ रहा होगा आपके figure का. Okay. Now what I am going to do, I am going to add the plot that I have to include here. So here you can mention the code for the plot. अब उसके लिए I'm going to take the code that you guys wrote at the top, or this is the code that Afan gave me, and I'm going to just add it right here. Okay. And once you have written it, we are just going to do plt.show. अभी के लिए when you have a look at this graph, since इसमें कोई और chart present नहीं है, तो the only figure that you see is of the stacked graph, जिसके लिए I have provided the code. Okay. Now let's add another graph ताकि we have some frame of reference कि how the charts will be added. तो यहाँ पे I'll be adding the popularity histogram. Okay. And the popularity histogram, let's say कि this is the stacked graph and I want to add the histogram just beside it. So इस वाली figure से reference ले लेते हैं. Let's say इतने में my popularity वाला chart is coming and I want the histogram right beside it. Okay, I want it to take same number of rows just like the stacked graph, but जो number of columns है, where my stacked graph is ending. अभी के लिए let's say in my vision, यहाँ पे is my stacked graph and it is ending right here. तो उसके बाद से I want my histogram to start and I wanted to take the same number of rows just like the stacked graph. तो उसके लिए how we can add the subplot? Okay, just before this show function, you can again use add subplot function, or इसमें we can slice the grid again. I want to use the same number of rows. So starting की 2 rows we are using, and I want to use the columns after column 3 क्योंकि 3 तक तो we have this particular graph, और I want 3 के बाद से the popularity वाला histogram. Okay, once you have sliced the grid, get your code. So this is my code for popularity and I have included it right here. इसमें एक title भी डाल देते हैं. This is popularity and let's run it. Add subplot. Okay, it is fig subplot. Okay, so this is the subplot, and you can see right beside my stack graph, I have my popularity wala histogram. Okay. Now let's say कि मेरे को एक और graph add करना है and I wanted to add at the bottom of these two graphs. Okay, and I wanted to take the entire space. तो उसके लिए what we can do? Let's add the loudness histogram here. So ऊपर I have written a code for the same, and we are going to slice the subplot again. अब इसके लिए can you tell me what should be my start and the stop index if I want to add a histogram right at the bottom of my figure? I wanted to take the entire space, the entire column, and these rows just after the stack and the popularity histogram. Can you please mention how I should slice the grid? Yes, guys. Any idea on how I should slice the grid? Okay, Afan mentioned that column 2, I'll be copying it from the chat box. So this is the slicing criteria that Afan has provided. Now let's draw the figure and let's see if it is correct or not. What are we observing here? You can see कि अभी इसके just नीचे is my stacked graph क्योंकि you can see the ticks for the stacked graph and the histogram for popularity. And this particular graph for loudness इसने overlap कर दिया है. It has been created just above the existing graphs. Why is this the case? क्योंकि you can see that the number of rows that I have asked this graph to take, they are the starting two rows. जबकि मेरे को वैसा नहीं चाहिए. I want to start the rows after the second row. ठीक है, second तक तो क्योंकि मेरे graphs आ रहे हैं. So if I do this and if I get all the columns for the last two rows, then this would be the desired result. Okay, you can here see that now the histogram is not overlapping क्योंकि इधर तक we had two rows and यहाँ पे we had the space that should be used after these two rows. These sticks, they are overlapping, but you have a great idea on how to align them. You can use the horizontal orientation, you can increase the size of the figure, and you can provide title, you can change the color, everything is same, and you guys have great idea about it. अभी इस पर्टिकुलर ग्राफ में you can, like, if you are using GridSpec, you can create and you can align multiple charts in any manner that you like. But keep note of one thing, that this function of plt.show, it should be mentioned only once at the end. अगर आप इसको बार बार mention कर दोगे, then each and every graph will be created individually. So please mention it only at the end and not at the end of every graph. Okay. Here I'll give you one more homework. You have to learn about how to save this figure and how to download it in your systems. Okay, very easy function, save figure function. You have to learn about that function and use it to save this grid spec subplot. All right, guys, give me a thumbs up अगर यहाँ तक you guys understand what is the procedure and how to use GridSpec to create multiple plots. If you want to repeat anything, feel free to ask. Himanshu, Abhiraj, Amit, Afan, is it clear to everyone? All right, guys. कोई भी doubt हो, you guys can ping me a message later, or you guys can ask anytime. All right. Now there are more functions with that are present in Matplotlib, and we unfortunately won't be able to cover all of them. So I am showing you the documentation. These are different type of plots that are available in Matplotlib. We have covered the plot function, the bar function, and we have covered the uh, pie function. But there are also some other functions such as scatter, fill between, stack plot, stair, and stem. एक बार, you can take some time to go through all of them and understand a little bit about these functions. सबका like manner of coding would be same, but they would be conveying different kind of informations and in different manner. Scatter plot we will be exploring later, तो इसके लिए you guys don't need to worry. But एक बार documentations पढ़ लें. Afan has also provided the code for saving the figure, and I would be mentioning it here in the notebook. So this is the function that you can use. Provide the name of your graph that you want, provide the name that you want to give to your graph, and your graph will be saved by this. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I was talking about documentation. कोई भी चीज if we are learning, be it pandas, be it numpy, be it matplotlib, या फ्यूचर में कुछ भी पढ़ेंगे, don't forget to refer to their documentation. बहुत सारी चीज होती हैं which we miss, which we overlook while learning. तो एक बारी you guys can refer to the documentations. All right, give me a thumbs up if we can proceed with the rest of the session. Okay. Let's start with Seaborn and let's explore a few of the plots that Seaborn has. Now, Seaborn, it does the same task. That is, it basically helps you to visualize your data. But it is a high-level library. The graphs that you will see here will be a little bit more prettier as compared to the graphs that we have drawn in Matplotlib. थोड़े ज़्यादा अच्छे से लगेंगे दिखने में. And also, the line of code that you write in Seaborn to draw a graph, it is comparatively less. Now, just like sklearn, sklearn is a library that I mentioned in one of the sessions, and that library is used a lot while learning about machine learning concepts. उस library में we have some data sets that you guys can use, and similarly, Seaborn also has some inbuilt data sets. इसकी भी documentation पढ़ लेना, and you can see all the data sets that are present here. Some of these data sets we will be using. So in order to import a data set, we use the alias of Seaborn, that is SNS, and we use the function that is load data set. And as the argument, you can mention the name of the data set. Okay, so TIPS is a very frequently used data set of Seaborn, or उसी पे will be creating some graphs. Now, this particular data set, it conveys information about total bill that a customer paid, the tip that was given, what was the sex of the customer, whether they smoked or not, what time, what day of the week they visited the restaurant, what was the time, whether it was dinner, lunch, or breakfast, and how many people were there to eat. Okay, simple information. Let's store it inside a variable and let's use this data set. Okay. Now, Abhi, here you can see that we have a column for total bill and we have a column for tip. Let's see if there is any relation between total bill and tip. कि क्या अगर बिल ज्यादा है तो टिप ज्यादा है, या अगर बिल कम है तो टिप कम है. Is there any kind of relation between the two? So उसके लिए in Seaborn we have a function that is called LMPlot, and in Matplotlib the scatter function, it also does the same, uh, achieves the same task. It compares, or it visualizes the relationship between two variables. So to draw this plot, you use the function LMPlot. And here you can simply provide the values for x-axis and y-axis directly. So x pay, I need to get the total bill, let's say. Y pay, I want to show the tip and mention the data. So my data is tips. यहाँ पे you need to mention the variable name that is holding your data. X and Y values, they should be same as the column names that are present in the data set. Okay, these cannot be any string value. these values should match with the column names. And at last, you can simply do plt.show. And this is the plot that you will be getting. अभी इस plot में you guys can see कि I did not even need to provide the labels, और by default मेरे को labels भी मिल गए. If you want to override these labels, you can use plt.xlabel and ylabel functions that depend upon you. And this is the chart that we get using Seaborn. This chart में you can see that we have these data points and we have this line. This line that you can see in your data, it denotes the relationship, okay? So what is the relation between total bill and tip? When you look at this graph and when you see that a straight line relationship can be seen, a straight line starting from bottom of bottom left of your graph to top right of your graph. This indicates that total bill and tip, these value they are positively correlated. क्या मतलब होता है positively correlated का? That if total bill is more, then the person they tend to give more tip. If the total bill is less, the person they tend to give less tip. Okay. Abhi is data mein you can see that not all the data points satisfy this relation. However, in majority we can see that the data is positively correlated. But yahan pe you can see that the bill is comparatively high and the tip is very low. Okay. Also here you can see that the bill is very low, but the tip is quite high. So these data points, okay, which are deviating from the rest of the data, we call them outliers. Okay, I'll mention it here. These data points, they are called outliers. What do they represent? They represent some kind of noise or inconsistency in data. And it is very important to identify these outliers when we are going to create a machine learning model. Because if your data has any outlier, the model it is not going to be accurate. Uski accuracy kahin na kahin disrupt ho jayegi. Okay. Is the fact about correlation and outliers clear to everyone? Give me a thumbs up if you understand these terms. We'll be using these terms a lot when discussing statistics and machine learning. Okay. Apart from positive correlation, there is also two other kinds of relation, that is negative or zero या फिर no correlation. अब अगर this graph would have been, do we still need PLT when using SNS? Yes, if you want to use the show function, it is present only in only in Pyplot package. You can see that you get this facet grid value right here, and to avoid it, we use the PLT function. Also, there are some functions which are present in Matplotlib, such as for labeling, such as for rotating the tick value, setting the ticks. So if the need arises, you can use PLT function. Okay, here, although it becomes necessary, because I want to avoid this value, I don't want to see this value. Okay. All right, so we were talking about negative correlation and no correlation. Negative correlation मतलब जब एक value बढ़ रही है, दूसरी value घट रही है. Okay, so then the direction of this graph would have been like this. No correlation means the points, the data point, they are scattered in no definite direction. तो उस time पे the two values that you are comparing, let's say total bill and tip only, उनके बीच में कोई correlation नहीं हुआ. एक का घटना दूसरे का बढ़ना कुछ भी एक दूसरे को emphasize नहीं कर रहा हो. अब correlation को जानने की जरूरत क्यों है? Why do we need to understand about correlation? होता क्या है कि when we deal with a huge data set, उसमें we might have multiple variables. काफी सारे factors हो सकते हैं जो किसी एक value को affect कर रहे हैं. So let's say, for example, we have a data set that has information about someone's height, someone's weight, and someone's body mass index. और एग्जाम्पल के लिए ले लेते हैं कि based upon these values, I want to predict someone's age. Okay, क्योंकि machine learning model they work in this manner only. You have some data, उस data में you have some independent variables and you have a dependent variable जिसकी value you have to predict. तो मेरे को हाइट और वेट और बीएमआई के हेल्प से एज की वैल्यू जाननी है. Here you can see that height and weight, both of these values, they are summarized in the BMI column only. Okay. So additionally, I don't need to have this height and weight variables क्योंकि इनकी जो information convey हो रही है, that is already present in another column. So to decrease the number of features and to increase the accuracy of your machine learning models, it is necessary that you understand if any two variables, they are positively or negatively correlated. They are affecting one another. If they are, you can drop one of these columns. Okay. और ड्रॉप क्यों करना होता है क्योंकि अगेन एक्यूरेसी एंड जितने भी आपके नंबर ऑफ फीचर्स होंगे इफ यू हैव मोर नंबर ऑफ फीचर्स द मॉडल दैट यू आर गोइंग टू क्रिएट इट विल बी मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स ओके प्लीज गिव अ थम्स अप अगर ये बात समझ में आ रही है सबको ऑलराइट अभी इसी फंक्शन के हम कुछ वेरिएशंस देखेंगे सो आई एम कॉपिंग दिस कोड नाउ दिस डेटा सेट टिप्स it contains information about the gender of the person as well who was the customer whether they were male or female but this chart, it is not conveying that information. So I can use a parameter that is called hue and I can provide the column name that I want to set as hue. Hue basically means a shade. So let's say to, I want this graph to convey the gender of the person. So I have mentioned the sex column here. And when you run this particular code now, you can see that the sex of the person, it has been highlighted. By orange dots, we have females. By blue dots, we have males. Also, the line for relationship. Now there are two lines for correlation. Orange one is for females and blue one is for males. अभी इस ग्राफ से what is the insight that you guys can comprehend? क्या चीज समझ में आ रही है जो पहले नहीं समझ में आ रही थी? Can you guys write any insight that you can observe from this graph? Yes, you can see that men gives more tip and the tips that okay, we can't even say that men give more tip because it might be that more male customers are coming. But one thing that is distinct here is that the range of tip that is given by men, it is very vast. काफी high tip दे रहे हैं in general. But the tips that is given by females, that is constricted to a region only. बहुत ही रेयर केसेस हैं कि अ फीमेल हैज गिवन वेरी हाई टिप या फिर मोस्टली जो डेटा आप देख रहे हो टिप का वो फीमेल्स का एक ही रीजन में लाई कर रहा है दैट इज द इनसाइट व्हिच वी वर नॉट एबल टू गेट अर्लियर बट नाउ इट इज विजिबल टू अस ओके लेट्स मॉडिफाई दिस ग्राफ अ लिटिल बिट मोर अभी यहाँ पे वी ऑल्सो हैव इन दिस टिप्स डेटा सेट वी हैव अ कॉलम दैट talks about whether the person smokes or whether they do not smoke. So you have a parameter that is row, and you can mention the column that you want to be signified as one row inside this particular graph. When you run it, you see that abhi aapke graph mein there are two subplots. This one, it denotes total bill versus tip for smoker. And this one, it talks about total bill versus tip for non-smokers. Okay. Again, if you want to highlight the gender of the customer, you can use the hue parameter. The gender is also highlighted in both of these graphs. If you want a separate graph, let's say for gender and for smokers, you want a separate graph. कि मेरे को फीमेल और स्मोकर्स दिखा दो मेरे को फीमेल और नॉन स्मोकर्स दिखा दो मेल और स्मोकर्स मेल एंड नॉन स्मोकर्स तो उसके लिए यू कैन यूज instead of hue the column parameter uh, row column. Let me check the name of this parameter. It is call. Okay. So यहाँ पे you can see that we have 4 graphs now. This one is tip and total bill for smoker and male, smoker and female, non-smoker and male, non-smoker and female. ठीक है? So these are various variation of this particular function, that is LMPlot, which tells relationship between two variables. Okay, and there is a similar function scatter plot. तो वो आप लोग देख लोगे. This one is present in Matplot here. Okay, give me a thumbs up अगर ये function समझ में आ रहा है. It is quite easy, right? हाँ जी, please give a thumbs up. Please react. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, which part should I explain upon? This row and column or the hue one as well? Okay. So hue parameter, it basically takes a column from your data and it highlights the value of that column using a color. Okay. Hue basically means color. So it is going to highlight the sex of the customer by a color. And that's how we are able to observe different genders that are present in our data, male and female. And we can see the relationship for total bill and tip and also spot the genders in this data. Looking at this data, we got to know कि जो males हैं, their tips, it lies, it follows a varied range, a very vast range. You can see low tip भी है और काफी high tip भी है, and the data is spread between low and high range values. However, for female, you can see कि most of the data, now I'm not talking about all the data, most of the data, these orange dots, they are concerned, they are constricted in this region only. So if we don't mention you, all the columns from the data set are added in the chart. Yes, you can see that basically this particular chart, this particular plot, it is standing, it is conveying information about whole data set, just total bill and tip, nothing else. इससे और कोई information हमें नहीं मिल रही है. Not about gender, not about smoking, neither about what time of the day, what kind of lunch. ये कोई information नहीं है. That is just total bill and tip. ये सेम काम स्कैटर प्लॉट करता है मैटप्लॉटलिब में. ओके, यहाँ पे हमें इन दो वेरिएबल्स की भी इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रही है और एक थर्ड कॉलम की भी इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रही है. व्हेन यू यूज रो एंड कॉलम पैरामीटर्स, तब वी आर कंपेयरिंग 4 कॉलम्स ऑल टुगेदर, टिप, टोटल बिल, स्मोकर एंड जेंडर. इज दैट क्लियर नाउ? Okay, so we have been talking about correlation a lot. Is there any way to calculate correlation? So यहाँ पे the name of the data set is tips, and to calculate correlation, what do? You simply use this CORR function, the core function, and this is going to calculate the correlation for you guys. Okay. Abhi you can see that the correlation, it is a value that you obtain between two numerical columns. जितने भी categorical columns थे data में, they are not present in this matrix that you can see here. Okay. If you want to see the function of correlation, you can refer the internet. However, we will be discussing about statistics. Then we will be talking about correlation and covariance and variance and various other numerical quantities. Okay. तो अभी के लिए you guys can simply understand the correlation function और इतना भी काफी रहेगा if you know that correlation tells you the relationship between two variables. Okay. So the function for correlation एक बार मैं दिखा देती हूँ आपको. स्कूल में भी कैलकुलेट करते थे. Just a moment. Okay. So this is how you calculate correlation. You calculate the covariance between two variables x and y, और फिर आप उनका standard deviation दोनों का multiply कर देते हो and divide the whole term. Okay. तो अभी to understand it, we would also need to understand about covariance. But both of these terms, they are used to identify relationship between two variables. इनके बारे में statistics में पढ़ेंगे. Okay. Let's understand what this correlation matrix is conveying. Okay. So this data frame that you can see, it is basically comparing, and it has calculated the correlation between all the values that are present in your dataset, all the numerical values. Total bill versus total bill, tip versus tip, size versus size. Whenever you will observe the correlation between similar values, जैसे कि total bill versus total bill, tip versus tip, size versus size, you will observe that the value is always 1. Which means कि काफी high correlation है इन दो values में. Obviously होगा क्योंकि both the values they are same. So correlation, it can range from -1 to 1. It can be anything. ठीक है. जितना नेगेटिव होगा, it would be negative correlation. उतनी ही स्ट्रेंथ होगी नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन की. जितना ज्यादा 1 के करीब होगा पॉजिटिव 1 के, उतना ही पॉजिटिवली कोरिलेटेड होगा. ओके. सो these values on the diagonal, they show high correlation क्योंकि this is the calculation between the same value. जब आप correlation देखते हो zero tip versus total bill, you see that the value is 0.67, which means it is lying closer to +1, which means these two values, they are positively correlated. Also size and total bill, इसका भी correlation is 0.5. कहीं ना कहीं it is high correlation, and it also makes sense. अगर लोग ज्यादा होंगे तो बिल भी ज्यादा है. Okay. So though this is a very short data set, जब आप एक काफी बड़े data set पे काम कर रहे होते हो, this function, it helps a lot in understanding about the relationship between your values. Okay. अभी इसको प्लॉट कैसे करना है? अभी के लिए I have these 3 columns only, so it is easy for me to comprehend कि कैसा correlation है इन values के बीच में. But if I have a very huge data set, तो मेरे को numbers देख के शायद ना समझ आ पाए. I want to plot it. So we have a plot for that. That is heat map. Or Seaborn में you can use the heat map function. You can pass your correlation data frame here, and you can simply run the function. यहाँ पे you can see that we have various shades of a color, and at the right side we have a bar. The range of this bar is from 0.5 to 1. This bar, it contains shades, or shade के basis पे it is telling what is the value of correlation. Such as if a color is dark, okay, it means that the correlation value, it is from 0.5 to 0.6. If it is very light, it means that correlation is 1, equals to 1. So you can see at the diagonal we get this light color, and at these places we get this purplish color which is quite dark, because the correlation, it is ranging from 0.6 to 0.7 somewhere. All right. Here you can see that the correlation would be ranging from 0.5 to 0.6. This bar, its color, its range, it can be different for different data set, and it depends upon आपकी correlation matrix. आप देख सकते हो कि सबसे कम correlation 0.5 का है और सबसे ज्यादा 1 का है. So for this data, the bar is ranging from 0.5 to 1. Okay, so this range, it is going to differ based upon the graph. If you want to change the color of this graph, so you can use the parameter. You can recall the CMap function that we use to impart color map. Same function आप यहाँ पे भी use, same parameter यहाँ पे exist करता है, तो आप अपना color map use कर सकते हो. We have spectral, we have greens, और काफी सारे shades हैं. You can use any one of them. If you want to show the value of correlation right here, we have a parameter that is anode, and set it to true, तो आपकी correlation values भी आपको यहाँ पे दिखते हैं. Okay. Also एक function parameter के बारे में मैंने बताया था, that is auto PCT, which is used to format these values in pie chart. वो आप यहाँ पे भी कर सकते हो. If you want to set the formatting scheme, use the auto PCT parameter, and set your formatting, and the formatting will be applied to these correlation values. और भी काफी सारे parameters होते हैं that you guys can use, but these three things, they are quite basic, and you guys can right now go along with these parameters. Okay, chalo, please give a thumbs up if this is understandable to everyone. Okay, so with this we are going to end the session. Session end करने से पहले I'll mention a few things. One, please fill the form for Saturday session vote if you haven't yet. Secondly, explore Matplotlib. There are some functions that you need to do. And thirdly, I'll be sharing a data set that is related to Shark Tank India. Okay, contains values about pitches that the judges made, and how many pitch was made by one particular judge. So basically, go through this data set, और इस डेटा में से मेजर insights मेरे को बता दो. What are the major things that you can observe? You are free to explore this data set. कोई भी plot बनाओ, कोई भी library use करो. If you know more libraries for data visualization, you can use those as well. And mention at least 5 to 7 insights. Okay. या फिर any 3 major insights. Okay. So this is the case study that you are going to do for data visualization. By this week, you can attempt it. Okay. All right, with this, we will end the session now. अगर किसी का कोई भी doubt है, they can stay in the session, they can discuss their doubts. Otherwise, thanks for attending. You can leave the session now.